Today's webinar won't be extremely long, but the idea is really to give everyone on the line what seamless planning actually does today and where it's heading. So it's going to be a mix between some PowerPoint slides where I'm kind of explaining the concept and then going into tools so you can actually see what that means today, and then we'll conclude with the roadmap. So first, let me introduce myself. For people who do not know me, I'm Eric Blondin, head of business technology at Simplify. I've been in this field for over 25 years now. Historically, way back in the before Business Objects was part of SAP and BW, all those technologies. And obviously, in the past few years, I've really been focused on all the latest cloud technologies like SAC and Datasphere, and focusing on the planning and analytics area. As for Simplify, for anyone who don't know me, I've already quickly mentioned the agenda. Sorry about that. Skipping over already. So Simplify, we're from partners who really focus on business process design, business content, automation, and implementation of SAP planning, analytics, and consolidation solutions. So this is really our focus. When you work with us, we don't have people who were on an S4 project or maybe IBP project the week before. We really are focusing on SAC planning, Datasphere, and all the components that kind of go with that process. We are one of SAP's go-to partners for analytics and planning, so we regularly get involved as an extension of their team for demos, proof of concepts, or just sizing estimates for an upcoming project. Our company goal as a small boutique firm, it's really 100% references. Any project we go into, the idea is after that, you'll want to share your experience at either webinars like this, at events, or just through some quotes that we can publish on our website. So really, if you work with us, our idea is for you to be fully referable, so we can keep on working with you and help us obviously gain other customers who will be as happy as you are. We have offices in Canada and the US. So even though we are located mostly in those two countries, we do have customers across all major industries and geographies. And obviously, a lot of our content, we won't be talking about our content today, but if you go on our YouTube channel, you'll see a lot of different videos on that content that really enables you to capitalize on the planning capabilities of SAC. Talking about those capabilities, we really help our customers from process design, business content deployment. So all of that award-winning content, we help implement it so it really accelerates your projects. After that, or even before, we do also offer expert as a service. So you need some help, you need to figure out something, we'll gladly help you. And then obviously, managed implementation is one of our main endeavors where we really help our customers rolling it out. From a technology focus perspective, really today, we are an SAP Business Data Cloud partner. What is SAP Business Data Cloud? If you haven't followed all the hype about it, this is really a grouping together of SAP Analytics Cloud, SAP Datasphere, BW, and Databricks. So I'm going to quickly talk about that on my next slide, but obviously today's subject is SAC, SAP Analytics Cloud, and SAP Datasphere from a seamless planning perspective. We also have strong capabilities in group reporting, PAPM, and historically BPC, HANA were some of our core expertise areas. So we are keeping working on this one here. I see there are questions. I'm going to take questions at the end if you don't mind. And but yes, if you do have any questions, don't hesitate. There's a question area you can put your questions in, and towards the end, I'm going to have a look there if there's anything I need to clarify. Okay. Beside all this, so we at Simplify, we offer those services. Planify is how we brand that business content I just talked to you about. So Planify is really just a branding of all those FP&A planning processes we have in SAC. And obviously, right now, we are developing additional business content where we will be capitalizing a lot more on Datasphere. Right now is a minimal integration, but as SAP is investing in that full integration between SAC and Datasphere, so are we, so that our business content really capitalizes on all of this. So very quickly, SAP Business Data Cloud. Just to understand, because you're probably going to hear about it today. It is partially a new tool, partially a reorganization and rebranding of the suite of tool. So see it as a office suite of SAP's Analytics, BI, and planning. So when we're looking at the Business Data Cloud, initially what we have is SAP Datasphere is part of it, SAP Analytics Cloud, as I mentioned. SAP Databricks, this is coming up. So this is really the Databricks that is not by SAP, as some of you may be aware, but they will be integrated the Databricks environment within SAP Business Data Cloud, so it can be fully integrated with Datasphere and Analytics Cloud, obviously, and BW. So you see BW, it's the BW that you would import in a cloud environment within Business Data Cloud. So if you have a BW instance on premise, you could migrate it to Business Data Cloud and you'd be able to capitalize on it within there. And that would include BPC if you have BPC or any add-ons within that BW. Obviously, Joule. Joule is SAP's AI copilot. So you'll hear about Joule a lot more in the coming months as it becomes integrated with just about anything. And aside from saying, okay, so it's the same tools more or less with some additional options, how is that different than what we had before? The main difference you'll see with this is that right now it's becoming available now, but as the next year or two come up, you will be able to have buying one license and it's capacity units. So if you have Datasphere today, you understand the concept of capacity units. But going forward, capacity units will apply to all of these tools. So you buy a number of capacity units and you can decide, okay, I want that many SAC users. I want that much memory, that much storage in Datasphere, that much in Databricks, but it's all one SKU. So you're buying one product with a certain volume and you can reallocate as you're moving forward. So maybe at the beginning you won't need as many users, but as you're developing, you want a maximum capabilities on Datasphere and Databricks. So you're assigning capacity units there. Then over time, maybe you'll really want to grow SAC and there's going to be less development in the background. So it will really provide that flexibility. So today, new customers can sign SAP Business Data Cloud. So if you are to buy it, but in the future, obviously, and I'm going to talk about that in the roadmap, you would be able to migrate to Business Data Cloud. But today, that's not the case. Today, it's really for new customers as we move forward. But that won't stop you from using seamless planning, as I'm going to be explaining today. So what is seamless planning? So seamless planning's vision, okay? So let's be fully transparent. This is not where we are today. This is where we're heading. So we want to enable real-time planning and steering on it, semantically enriched data. What really that means is everything that's in Datasphere can be used within your planning model without having to import everything in SAC. I'll explain how that's different from today in just a few minutes. But really, Datasphere, SAC, planning, you can capitalize on all that information, really use it, and be as efficient as possible without duplication of all of this. You want to reuse dimensions across SAC and Datasphere. Again, today, you'll see we've started. You can start creating objects in SAC that will automatically exist in Datasphere. It's not fully there, though, but in the future, you create a dimension in Datasphere, you create a dimension in SAC. The idea is you're able to reuse them on both sides. So this will really enhance development and obviously reduce maintenance costs because you won't need to duplicate everything. And extend planning and data access capabilities. Again, today, if you're doing planning, it's all managed from the SAC side of things. So on the Datasphere side, you're not using any of those functionalities. There's advanced Python, and in the future, with Databricks in there, there's going to be advanced capabilities there as well that could feed into Datasphere and feed into your planning model. So today, planning is managed from SAC. So you're missing on a lot of those functionalities. There are ways of doing it, which I'll go through in just a few seconds, but it's not as well integrated as we would like. So what is seamless planning today? If that's the vision, where are we today if you were to start using it? So today, you're able to deploy a newly created model in SAC to a specified Datasphere space. So I'll go into SAC and Datasphere in just a few seconds so you can get an idea of what that actually means. But today you are able to do that if you have obviously SAC Datasphere with some limitations I'll get back to in a few minutes. You're able today to make sure that all your facts and master data, and it's written here public dimensions, are available in Datasphere. So anything you create in SAC will be in Datasphere, but anything being only facts and public dimensions. I'll talk about this and a few other limitations when we get into the tool. Consume plan data from SAC models and Datasphere workflows. So today, if you do not have seamless planning, you literally need to push your data in Datasphere. And I'll have a slide that explains exactly what that means. But with this, you're going to be able to create a view within Datasphere on your plan data that is in SAC without building additional data flows or anything. So this is what you're able to do today, and I'll show you exactly what that means. But obviously, quite a few restrictions still as this is evolving. So already, let's get into the actual tool. So I'm expecting most of you here have logged on to SAC in the past, so I will not explain the whole SAC interface. I'm going to go directly into my modeler. Okay, so when we look at SAC, you have your stories, data analyzer, data actions, predictive. I'm going to go on the modeler here. And when I go into modeler, what I want this model, which I created. Okay, so if I click on that model, looks like a normal model like all the other ones. The only difference is you see at the right, it says SAP Datasphere. So once I get into it, if you look what this looks like, if you're familiar with SAC again, you have your typical star schema. You have your facts and then multiple dimensions around it. The difference is when I created it, and that's a very important mention. When you create your model is when you can say, I want it to be stored in Datasphere. Once it's created, you cannot change that. So be very careful. You create your model, you say it's going to be planning stored in Datasphere. And Datasphere is organized by spaces. So you decide which space you want to put it on, and then it creates your model. Here it says it's exposed in Datasphere, and the name is test EBN. Okay, so test EBN is now a model that is exposed in Datasphere. And on the SAC side, that's pretty much all there is to it. You can go in any model, as you saw in the list. I could see it was in Datasphere. You come in here, you see it's in the simplify content. So the only way I can go and look at anything else, I go in Datasphere to look at what's available there. But what will I see on the Datasphere side before I get there? What you will see is the fact table. So the amount, version, account, date, all those keys. So you'll only see the keys themselves. So version, account, and these information, you'll only see the key. And then you will only see public dimensions. So if I click on entity here, I know my model is in Datasphere, but I don't see that it is exposed because this is not a public dimension. So when I'll go in Datasphere, I will not see the entity dimension. It will not be available. But customer test here, and few people who know SAC, that little logo means it's a public dimension. If I click on it, this one I see it is exposed. Okay, and then you have your customer test EBN that's available here. So you are able to go in the model and we will see that dimension. For this model here, that means when I end up in SAC, in Datasphere, sorry, I will see one dimension and data foundation. If I look at what's in that dimension right now, I'll see it's very simple. Member ID, descriptions, a small, very simple hierarchy, and a property. Okay, so remember that. Description, dimension, hierarchy, and property. This is what I will have. This is what I have in this dimension on this side of SAC. And finally, if I look at the facts, I'm going to go on my actual data foundation. I see the account. I kept it simple here. expenses and revenue, the date, the product, I like max, customer, entity, in this case I did not put anything in the entity dimension, and the amounts. Revenues are negative, expenses are positive in that model. That's it. That's all I have in SAC. Very standard model. Limitations from an SAC side of things, it's identical. So there are no limitations that I am aware of in SAC when you build your planning model, when you build data actions, input forms. This is going to work the same way as any previous planning models on the SAC side of things. So you can go ahead right now, and there will be no impacts for your build once it is seamless planning. It won't give you everything that is coming in seamless planning, but at least you're going to have something you're actually able to use in SAC without impacts. And slowly, as the solution evolves, you're going to be able to capitalize on it more when you go in Datasphere. Okay, so no limitations in SAC. Limitations are what you can actually do on the Datasphere side. And keep in mind, right now, you cannot migrate an existing model to a seamless planning model. So if you want to capitalize on the functionalities as they come up, you should start it as a seamless planning model right now to really be able to use it. Now let me go back quickly to my slides, explain a few additional things, and then we'll switch over to Datasphere and understand what that means. So this is a model I was just looking at. So you see there's the public dimension, and we see it's stored in simplified content. Now, how does that work today? So today, okay, or if you want to do reporting in SAC off Datasphere, you already are able to bring in all your data in Datasphere. So you bring your remote tables, different tables, you have data flows, bring that data. You then model this with facts, dimensions, text, hierarchies. You're able to do all of this today in Datasphere. So you're building reporting in Datasphere. You put all of this together into an analytic model. So an analytic model is just organizing all this information. It doesn't contain anything. The data is actually in the fact tables, dimension table, text tables, and so forth. And then in SAC, you're able to do live reporting on this and use also the Excel add-in to live report on all of this. So very efficient, and that's been there for over a year. So you don't have to wait for Business Data Cloud Seamless Planning or other restrictions I'm going to talk about to be able to do that reporting. Where you have a limitation is when you're trying to do planning, because planning you need today, if you build an SAC model without seamless planning, and the data needs to be in SAC in the model. So you need to import it. You cannot use a live connection in a planning model because you're going to be making changes. You're running a budget, you're running forecasts, running simulations in it. So you need to have your data in there. So you would need to use OData to use that same analytic model, but store it in here. So obviously there's a delay to have your data. And if you want to have comparatives in your forecast between where actuals are and where your forecast is going, that means you need to load actuals and forecast into this model. Even though it's all available, properly structured in your Datasphere, you still need to bring it all into SAC. And this is where SAP figured we need to be able to do this live as well for planning. It's like it makes no sense to import all actuals when we're only building budget here. We want to be able to run the budget here, but compare it to actuals that are in Datasphere. But today, that is not possible. Even with seamless planning, you need to import everything in your planning model. And that also includes the model I just showed you. It's stored in Datasphere, but data loads are still managed through SAC. So you need to bring your data the same old way. So I said earlier, there's no impact on SAC functionalities. Actually, you need to use all the SAC functionalities. You're not saving anything from a planning perspective if you're using seamless planning today. But that doesn't mean there's nothing you can do with it. Okay? So quickly, just to summarize, live connection, you can consume directly Datasphere data in SAC. For reporting, there are no issues. Datasphere tenants can be connected to as many SAC tenants as possible. So you could have multiple tenants all reading the same data, and then you organize it for any adjustments, and then you can also do translations within SAC. So you have multi-language. All this is very efficient. but this is for reading the information that is in Datasphere. For planning, today you can import your data with OData in your model, and then you do a cloud data integration to push it back either as a data flow in a table or even a remote table that will read it. But still, you need to configure all of this manually to be able to read the data from a Datasphere, load it in SAC, push it back into Datasphere, so that afterwards live reports potentially that are with the Datasphere can read the planning data. So this is development you need to do. That's today if you don't have seamless planning. So you load actuals from Datasphere, so actuals, any data that would be loaded in forecast maybe, and then you load data from SAP Analytics Cloud into Datasphere. Um, so kind of a hassle, and things are not in sync. You publish your plan here, you still need to push it back so that it's available in the other report. So it causes some challenges to keep everything organized and properly in sync, so you don't have discrepancies. I finished my budget. How come the data is not my budget? And different discussions like this. So for end users, typically this is not what they're looking for. It's causing more issues than actually solving them. That's at least what I've seen with many of our customers. But with seamless planning, so this is today, you are still going to need to import data in a planning model. Okay, so if you need the data that's in an analytic model in Datasphere, you still need to import actuals, forecast, budget, any data you need to see within your planning input forms. You still need to import that in there. But as I showed you earlier, the data, so the fact table, is stored within Datasphere. So that means at the moment you publish your data from SAC, it is available automatically in any analytic model you're reading that table from. So at least from a synchronization of data, this really saves you a lot of time and makes it simpler from a maintenance. This is not something you built. This is just that select space in Datasphere that I showed you just before, and it's going to generate this table here that you can consume within Datasphere. The only thing to keep in mind is as it creates that table that you're able to consume, and we're going to get back in Datasphere in a few seconds, this is generated in a read-only Datasphere table. So that table is generated by SAC. You have all your data. The moment you save in SAC, it is available in the Datasphere table because SAC is actually running on that table now in Datasphere, but it is read-only. Everything is maintained from SAC. The only thing you have in Datasphere is the capability to report off it, which still is a great added value. So you can have your input forms, you load in here only what you need in the input forms, and then all your reporting can be live reports in SAC. So publish here, run the other SAC report that is live, and you have your budget in there. So it does simplify things quite a bit, but not yet full seamless planning. You still need to have, you won't see it, excuse me, you won't see your actuals in here unless you load them. So that's still that little element that you don't need it from the plan because you're not changing actuals data, but you still need to go and load it regularly to be able to see it in your planning model. So how does that look in Datasphere? Because these are the concepts, but if you go in Datasphere, what is that going to look like? Okay, so here just a quick screenshot, but let me just go in Datasphere directly. So back in SAC, just going to switch over to Datasphere. So I'm going to end up in the Datasphere that is configured behind that SAC tenant. So if I look at here, when I work with tables in Datasphere, it's the data builder. So let me just click on the data builder. And if you have a good memory, you may remember simplify content is what we were looking for. So simplify content is that space I'm using. If you've attended other of our webinars in the past about Datasphere, for example, so here I'm in simplify content, but I could have other spaces. So I can have the finance space, the sales space. This one, I call it simplify content. This is where I'm generating my model, but I'm also able to read tables that are in other spaces. So here, for example, I have some profit centers that are in SAP and partner content space. So I can't maintain it here, but I can read it and include it in my report. So you can have departments that are responsible for loading, validating data, and then sharing maybe a final view that allows them to see the data you actually want, but then really securing it in different spaces. But now I'm actually going to focus on the test EBN. As you can see, technical names start by SAP SAC. This is generated by a system, so you won't be able to change that. And these are the tables that are created by SAC. If you look, you have your fact table, it says it, fact. You have your texts, and you have the actual dimension. So customer test EBN, customer test EBN text. So it did generate these three tables from what I was doing in SAC. Let's have a quick look what these look like. So first, let's look at a fact table. So this is deployed from SAC. You can actually see kind of technical names from which it's generated. And you can also see that it is all read-only. I cannot change anything. If I want to change a name, I go in SAC. If I want to add dimensions, I go in SAC. Semantic types, as you can see, in SAC, it's actually a month dimension for the date. So at least Datasphere recognizes that automatically. If it didn't, I still wouldn't be able to come and change it here. Customer text EBN even is not associated with the text table that's created. The system doesn't do that. And then you have your amount, which is a sum aggregation, which was again configured in SAC, and that's it. So very simple table. And if I look at the content of that table, if you remember earlier, this is exactly the facts that I could see in SAC. So your account, amount, date, version, entity that had nothing, customer, and that's it. Those were the dimensions that we saw in SAC. The fact table pretty much gives me the same information in SAC. But if you wanted to have your product dimension with properties, maybe hierarchies, it does not exist yet in Datasphere. So if today you wanted a report that has that product hierarchy that reads at Datasphere, you would need to maintain a separate dimension in Datasphere that links to that product column. So you would maintain it in SAC, you would maintain it in Datasphere. Maybe what you could do is create it only in Datasphere and then do a load that loads the equivalent dimension in SAC. Because in the future, you'll be able to reuse all the objects that are in Datasphere. But today, you still need to load two separate dimensions if they're local. But even if they're local, but even if they're public, there are again limitations. I told you earlier, have a look at what that customer dimension looks like. I had member ID, description, hierarchy, and property. So first, let's go in the text one. Text table has the ID, language. So if you're maintaining multiple languages in SAC, you'll have them here, and description. So this is really just ID and description. In my case, I did not maintain multiple languages. So ID, name, description. That's it. There's nothing else in here. So you will not have additional information in those texts. And if I go in the other one, which is really the dimension table, you're probably thinking, oh, that's where I'm going to have the hierarchy and property and all these things. Actually, hierarchies, parent member hierarchies created in SAC cannot currently be consumed. Let me rephrase that. Any parent-child hierarchies you create in SAC will not be visible at all in Datasphere for now. So again, if you create it in SAC, you'll need to create that dimension with hierarchy again in Datasphere. It will not be available automatically. I guess you can all imagine that this is one of the things they will be solving over the next few months. But right now, I can see my property on that public dimension, but I do not have any hierarchies that are generated automatically. I need to create them in Datasphere if I need them in that live reporting I mentioned earlier. So fact table, public dimension, this is all it generates, and this is all read-only. So here in Datasphere, I cannot change anything. I cannot create a transformation flow that will load into this. I can read from it though. I could create a transformation flow reading from this and loading a separate table within Datasphere if I want to duplicate it even further. But typically I could also create a view that I could consume elsewhere. So we're getting there. The data at least is automatically in Datasphere, but still a bit of work so that we can really capitalize on it. So what does that mean? Where is SAP going with this? I think SAP has a very aggressive roadmap on this where really it's fully understood what the limitations are. So let's see what we can do moving forward. So as I mentioned, Q1 2025 is when a lot of this came out. So that's February, end of February. So persistence of SAP Analytics Cloud facts and master data in Datasphere, as I mentioned, as I mentioned for public dimension and excluding hierarchies. Deploy newly created models or import content into a specified SAP Datasphere space. So newly created models, that's the keyword. You won't be able for now to migrate the existing model. You need to create a new one. And then you can consume plan data from SAP Analytics Cloud in SAP Datasphere workflows. So directly in Datasphere, you see that table. That's what I showed you. And then you can reuse it elsewhere in your process within Datasphere. So not fully perfect and ideal, but at least this is something you're able to capitalize on and start setting it up because it is going to evolve very fast in 2025 and in the future. So what are we expecting in 2025? Well, first of all, parent-child hierarchies. It's kind of one of the key elements that we really need there to really be able to reproduce those reports without double maintenance. So these are some enhancements that are supposed to come this year. And yes, let's keep in mind, this is what is currently planned. Delays may happen. So don't shoot me if it ends up being Q1 2026. But right now, it's planned for 2025. And also having access to those local dimensions. So they're not public. Let's still we need those dimensions. If you want to rebuild the report, you need the hierarchies and you need the local dimensions. Once that's done, at least all live reporting can really read directly all the budget data and other transactional table and data store all at once and produce real fully integrated reports. Cross orchestration. So right now you can run multi-actions and task chains. Multi-actions, that's in SAC. So you run data actions, data import loads, and all these things. And you have task chains within Datasphere that load data and apply all those different scripts within Datasphere. So this is something they're working to be able to have at least an API that allows us to coordinate them. I'll talk about the future is full integration, but in 25, at least being able to call them. So once one has completed a step, it's able to call the job on the other side. And something else, and that's the one I'm really looking. This is kind of minimal from my perspective, exposing hierarchies, local dimensions. But the one I'm really looking forward to is being able to consume live data from Datasphere in Analytics Cloud Planning models. Today, that's not possible. You need to load everything, as I showed you. So this is really something in 2025 I'm really looking forward to, where you're able to build your budget, but read actuals from Datasphere. You don't need to load them in there. So this would make a lot of different processes so much simpler. So this is where we're heading this year. Still, quite a few enhancements that are, I think, from a reporting standpoint, are going to be extremely useful. But you can see there's still a lot of work to do because for the following year, so within Datasphere, share those objects between spaces, migrating models to seamless planning. As mentioned, today it needs to be a new model, but at some point you'll want to be able to migrate everything. That's not for this year. They'll make sure everything works before they start doing that. Reuse of Datasphere dimensions in SAP Analytics Cloud model. That's another one. So maintaining it only once in your data warehouse or business data fabric within Datasphere, and then you're able to consume it. And keep in mind, Datasphere is part of Business Data Cloud. So some of that data could be in BW, some of that data could be in Databricks. If you've brought all of this in your Business Data Cloud, SAP will integrate all this, and then SAC will be able to consume it. Cross orchestration, that's kind of related to this here. So that task chain steps can be called in multi-actions. So that's multi-actions in SAC. And multi-actions can call task chains. So these are loading processes and other tasks within Datasphere. End-to-M tenant mapping. So today, I did not mention it so far, but for SAC Analytics for live connection, I said you can have as many SAC tenants reading Datasphere. But for seamless planning, it's one-to-one. Today, you have one SAC planning tenant connected to one Datasphere tenant. The moment that's done, you cannot bring another SAC tenant for seamless planning. You can bring as many as you want for live reporting, but seamless planning, it is one tenant. And also reuse Datasphere data access controls, because today, since we're importing and for planning, that means we have security in Datasphere, and we reset security in SAC. So being able to reuse that data access security, that would be a big time saver as well as you organize your planning process. And finally, being able to use all those business data cloud functionalities to write into SAP Analytics Cloud Planning models. Because again, I said it's read-only. So one of the next step is to be able to, today you want to apply a job on a planning model, you run a data action, which is going to apply a lot of different logic. But maybe in the future, there are some things, maybe advanced machine learning algorithms that you have in Databricks that you really want to use to feed part of your plan, or you do an entry and you want the logic that data actions are just not able to do. It's too complex. You do that in the rest of Business Data Cloud, Databricks, Datasphere, and write it back in your planning model. So today, there are ways of doing it. Obviously, you push out the data to Datasphere, you apply that logic, you bring it back into your planning model. But it's a lot of steps. In the future, you can read and write live without duplicating the data. And this is really another thing I'm really looking forward to. But this is in the future. When exactly, it really depends how fast they'll go on the other ones. One final detail. Okay, you're probably looking at this and saying, oh, okay, I want Datasphere. I want to start doing that now because I can see where this is going in the future. There won't be data in SAC. SAC will be your reporting and planning layer. The data will be in Datasphere. Very similar for people who have been BPC BW in the past. Very similar architecture where you're building your business logic in BPC, but you're really storing in BW. It's the same logic here that makes a lot of sense because you want to optimize your data in Datasphere. You can add CPU, you can add memory, disk. In SAC, you can just add users. You don't know that you cannot add more capacity to a space so that it runs faster or anything. This is all a black box. This is managed at the SAP side. If you put all your data in Datasphere and then a certain process during month end needs additional CPUs, you can do that within Business Data Cloud on Datasphere. But before we head there, there's one thing, and it's really that little star here. SAP Analytics Cloud Tenant migrated to SAP HANA Cloud. What does that mean? So that's really the critical element. If today you already have SAC, okay, you've had it for a while, and you're thinking, let me get Datasphere so I can start setting up like this. And Datasphere prices have really gone down. It's really affordable to include in your landscape if you want to start. But what does that imply? So if I go back in SAC, so let me switch back again to my SAP Analytics Cloud tenant. So if I go here, when you're in SAC, if you want to know if you're on SAP HANA Cloud, you go in System at the bottom and About. Okay, so About here. And here, I'm going to see HANA Cloud version. Okay, so this tells you this system, obviously, it's on HANA Cloud, or else I wouldn't have been able to show you what I showed you. If instead of this here, you have EPM and a bunch of numbers, EPM version. So this is the old setup for SAC. So people who have been in the area for a while, there used to be Neo. It's migrated to AWS or Azure or a lot of those hyperscalers now. But since last year, or early last year, all new SAC tenants are on HANA Cloud instead of EPM. Doesn't mean much typically. There are a few small functionalities that are missing if you're not on HANA Cloud. But going forward, the big element that is missing is seamless planning. You will not be able to do it if you have EPM version versus HANA Cloud. So look at your tenant, and if you still see EPM here, talk to your account exec on the SAP side, see what is possible to migrate it and when to HANA Cloud, because that's going to be a prerequisite. Or if you haven't done much in that environment yet, anyways, just request a new tenant and have it on HANA Cloud so that you're able to build out on seamless planning. Okay, so let me just go back here. That's all I wanted to say on today's presentation. So I